In the next film, Arthropoda. Firstly, with the subphylum Crustacea or crustaceans. Arthropoda means that their body is segmented, and all of the arthropods have a segmented body with external skeleton called exoskeleton, and its main part is the chitin. So they are not like us, the vertebrates. We have internal skeleton. Their body is soft, but outside this structure called exoskeleton keeps the soft organs inside safe. So a different classifications again. Here you can see the groups of the Branchiopods, Xenopods, Ostracods, and Malacostracans. And we'll accept a simple classification. Firstly, the so-called lower crustaceans. Class Maxillopoda. Subclass Copepoda. The copepods are a group of small crustaceans found in the sea and nearly every freshwater habitat. Some species are planktonic, drifting in sea waters. Some are benthic, living on the ocean floor. And some continental species may live in limno-terrestrial habitats and other wet terrestrial places. This film, After Rain, which I explained to you, talking about the rotifers, for example. They live also in swamps, under leaf fall, in wet forests, bogs, springs, and many other freshwater habitats. It doesn't matter if they are temporary, as puddles, for example. Many live underground, in marine and freshwater caves, sinkholes or stream beds. Even some species can live in the drops of the stalactites in the caves. In the small pools, which are called sinter pools in the karstic caves. Copepods are sometimes used as a biodiversity indicators, like the tubifax ringworms, as you remember. The genus Cyclops. They are named after the mythological creatures with one eye, mythological giants with one eye, from the Greek mythology. But these are small, but also having one eye. They are bisexual, and here you can see a female specimen with these specific egg sacs, which are hanging outside of its caudal part. Caudal part means the tail part of the animal. Also, it has antennas, which are sensory organs. Well-developed genital system. You can see here the ovary, uterus, oviducts. And there is a specific pore for the sperm entrance. Most of the cyclops prefer fresh waters and can be met in ponds and other standing waters. Here you can see how these animals are swimming using their antennas. So their antennas, you have to remember, their antennas are sensory organs, but also are used for swimming. So they can move side to side and the animal is swimming. Subclass Cirripedia, genus Balanus. These crustaceans are a rare case of sedentary crustaceans, like these worms, the Serpuas. But these are crustaceans, of course, quite different, but an example of mobile group of animals, but a small group which is sedentary. So let's go to the text. The bodies of these organisms are totally enclosed by a stony gray-white shell. The size of these shells ranges from 5 mm to 10 cm. They can be very large. and they can attach, for example, to the bottom of big ships and, of course, animals like whales. Sometimes they are causing even problems overgrowing whales. They take the form of a cone consisting of 6 plates fixed on the rock. The active animal can only be observed within the water when the shell opens and the barnacles exposed to branched appendages sit, regularly hitting the water to catch food. They mainly feed on plankton and food particles floating into water. Here you can see a photograph of a species, Balanus, one of the commonest species. They prefer salt water. They're living in the oceans and seas of the world. A very large group of the barnacles live and in the so-called tidal zone and littoral zone. It is the border between the shore and the shallow waters. For example, they grow on the rocks where the sea waves wash them regularly. So with this structure, the animal is feeding again on plankton. Sedentary organisms often feed on plankton, catching them with this specific structure, these specific net traps for catching small particles floating into water. Other species, Balanus trigonus, with this beautiful pinkish shell. Here you can see the other class, Branchiopoda. Branchiopods. They are consisted of 2 main groups. But maybe most famous are the water fleas. This one on your right. Again, it is a small crustaceans comparable with the Cyclops, floating into water with these antennas, which are used for swimming. They are not fleas, they are not parasites, but are called fleas because their swimming resembles the jumping of the true fleas, which are terrestrial insects. So you have to remember that with the antennas, they can swim, also catch prey, and are sensory organs. So they have a complex structure and are branched. Living in fresh waters, very often in temporary ponds and puddles, and they can survive dry periods mainly on the stage of egg. Next group are the so-called fairy shrimps, order Anostraca. They don't have the carapace, which is characteristic for most of the crustaceans. They are shrimp-like creatures and they are swimming on their backs, like the creatures in your right side. Their legs are going up, and with a wave-like movement, the creatures live. Typical, again, inhabitants of the temporary water basins as spring paddles after rain. You can see them, and some have a colorful tail area. Here you can see the swimming, these wave-like movements of the legs of the fairy shrimp. And the water fleas again, genus Daphnia. You can see here a light microscopic picture. What can we add? Except the specific tentacles, it has a well-developed eye and a specific posterior spine at the end of the body, at the caudal area of the body. Also, you can see the digestive tract. It is filled with green. This animal fed on phytoplankton or algae. Here you can see the specific swimming of the water fleas resembling the jumping of the true fleas. And the other groups are the Triops-like creatures, Triops cancriformis. This one here also inhabits sweet fresh water, living in temporary ponds, very often not very large, but larger than the Cyclops and the Daphnias, larger also than the fairy shrimps, mainly crawling on the bottom of the basin, digging into the mud and searching for food particles there. Class Malacostraca, order Amphipoda. These are the Gammarids. They have a complex carapace, which is consisted by a lot of single shields, also complex eye, rostrum, and two types of antennas. Caudal part, which is consisted by the so-called uropods. You can also know and remember that amphipods have very different leg types. So you can see how many types are here. You can see the front legs, some are modified as pincers, gnatopods called periopods, which are have function of typical legs for crawling in substrate. Pleopods very often used to hold eggs, or males can hold females. And in the act of copulation also the uropods and tilson. You can see how complex are the leg types in these amphipods. Many marine species and many freshwater species. Even some are living in caves in subterranean waters. And some representatives of the amphipods. Gammarus pulex is a freshwater species, one of the species indicators for water pollution. It can bear a slight, very slight organic matter in the water, so roughly said it is an indicator for clean, relatively clean waters. Middle category of waters. Pontogammarus are a group of marine species. Some of these marine crustaceans used to live in the sandy beaches. They digging small holes into the seashore at the tidal zone, and some even can crawl on human legs, and with these spines can cause a little pain. And people think that they are biting, but they are not. They are just crawling on your legs, eating dead skin, for example, and other dead organic matter. So these are scavengers, very often scavengers on the sandy beaches. The Niphargus, the group, is very interesting. These are blind and without any pigment species. So you can know that they are cave species. Living, they are stygobiotic. Stygobiotic means that they inhabit underground waters. The name of this ecological group derives from the ancient name of the mythological underground river Styx in the Greek mythology, the border between the living and the dead. So remember stygobiotic species or stygobiont, and the science which study this ecological group is called stygobiology. So remember Niphargus species, many freshwater species, a lot of endemics, and also relict species which survive from ancient times in this constant environment underground. Here you can see swimming of Gammarid species. Order Isopoda. It's interesting that some of these crustaceans are terrestrial. They're breathing by gills like other crustaceans, but the gills are adapted to absorb oxygen from the air. Complex structure, some uh, can be curled into a protective bow. You can see down. Or the Isopoda. Emblematic species for freshwaters, running freshwaters, the Asellus aquaticus means water donkey. Asellus means donkey, aquaticus means water. So these water donkeys prefer living in waters highly concentrated with organic matter, and they are also indicators for organic pollution, but they are quite resistant than the Gammarids. So in large quantities you can meet them in polluted waters, moderately polluted. And there are some giant isopods which live even in the Mariana Trench, in the very deep ocean areas. They are very large, and again they are scavengers. They are living on dead organic matter. For example, if a large mammal like whale dies, it sinks at the bottom, and these creatures uh, are helping to decompose its body. So they are very useful. They have their role in the ecosystem and helping decomposition of the dead organic matter in the very deep parts of the class Ostracoda, mussel shrimps. These are very interesting because these are crustaceans, but they are having two shells like the valves, the shells of the mussels. But they are not mussels, they are crustaceans. In the past, even some species were described as mussels according to their shell. Scientists find only their shell, and later it was recognized that it is the crustacean from the class Ostracoda. Very small creatures very often live again with the other group in the pedals and temporary ponds, a part of the zooplankton in the fresh waters. Here you can see a wide microscopic picture photograph of such an animal, and the two shells are well visible. The soft body of the animal is placed inside, again feeding with phytoplankton and other smaller food particles in the water depending on the species. And the higher crustaceans, and the Malacostracans called decapods. Very familiar to you. Decapods, it means that they have 10 legs, including pincers. Pincers are a type of legs, remember. And some representatives from the Aegean and Black Sea. The family Squilidae, Squilla mantis, very interesting predatory species living in the Mediterranean, and it's very powerful. With this mantis-like catching front legs, it is not only catching its prey, but it is boxing the prey. And it is boxing so hard, so it can hurt human, break glass. When you have to keep them in aquarium, it has to be with very strong glass, because it can break even the glass of the aquarium. Also can break fishermen boots and hurt the fishermen. So these are uh, very dangerous even and to humans, but they are often catched and used by humans. Again, predatory animals, Squilla mantis, or its common name is mantis shrimp, because it's resembling the shrimp with this elongated body. Again, you can see its legs at the end used to hold the eggs mainly, and these in the middle are using mainly for crawling. And the true shrimps, group of the shrimps or prawns, familiar to you, very often used for food, very often met seafood in the markets. the specific carapax, the variety of the legs. In front they have pincers, in the middle crawling legs, and their abdominal area called tail. Sometimes they are used by females to hold the eggs. Some species are very large. Penaeus monodon, again often used as a seafood. Family Peneidae. Family Solenoceridae. Solenocera membranacea. Again Mediterranean species. Cicionidae. Cicionia carinata. Pandalidae. Plesionica edwardsi. You can see the nice blue eggs. Alpheidae. These are interesting. The Alpheus and Types. You can see these asymmetrical pincers. The big one, is used to close their shelter. They are going backwards into the shelter, and with this big pincer, it protects the entrance. Processidae. Processa macrophthalma. Macrophthalma in Latin means with big eyes. Ophthalmos, eye. Macros, big. Palemon elegans, the so-called rock shrimp. Very often also catched as food. Not very large shrimp, but abundant in some areas, even in Black Sea. Family Palemonidae. Family Calianosidae, one-armed bandits. Again, you can see asymmetrical pincers. Living in the sands, often they live with other animals. For example, a goby fish can live there. Other species, Upogebia pusilla, from family Upogebidae, very often used as very often used for catching fish by anglers in the Mediterranean as a bite. They're hooking them and throwing into the water with their equipment. And the other species, Typica. These two are very often met in the Mediterranean. And the third species, Tevata. Family Diogenidae, Diogenes pugillator. These species are having soft abdominal area, which is placed inside an empty shell of a snail. So they are seeking empty shells and going inside when the animal grows, seeking for bigger shell. And the other, such ecological group, family Paguridae, Pagurus sp. Family Galateidae, Galatea intermedia. This interesting small crab. Porcellanidae, Pisidia sp. Pisium means that it's have rounded, very small carapax. P, in Latin it means pea. Pisum sativum is the Latin name of the pea. Porcellana sp. Homoa barbata. Catrella elegans. These are called sea spiders, but they are not spiders, they are crabs. Some are living in deep waters. Ilia nucleus, very often met in the Aegean Sea, for example, in Greece. Small crabs with this very interesting rounded carapax. Family Xanthidae, some species distributed also in the Black Sea and Aegean Sea and Mediterranean. monodiel species is often called as a seafood. Xanthopureza, distributed in Black Sea, having this very short, comparatively short hind legs with which it holds on the rocks, and with pincers it is catching prey, standing in one place, in ambush. Erifeverocosa, again, distributed species. Pulimnus hirteus, with these hair-like structures, they are imitating the seaweed, and it's a very good camouflage. You can see this big diversity of the decapods, a variety of shapes, colors, in different adaptations. Here you can see the square-like carapax of Gonioplex rhomboides. Some are even going outside the water and crawling on the rocks. These marbled crabs, Pachygraptus murmuratus, very often live outside water and just for a few minutes going down, or when there is danger, because some animals feed on them. For example, our European otters like to catch and eat them. Some are invasive. Calinectis sapidus, or blue swimming crab, is an invader from the Atlantic Ocean into the waters of Mediterranean and Black Sea. It was recently found in Black Sea and in Marbled Sea. Very big crab having the spines on the carapax, which have protective function against predators. Invasive species, remember this. The common swimming crab, Portunus pulsatus, living in sandy bottoms, preferring to live on sand, and can good ability to swim with these hind legs. You can see they are adapted for swimming. Carcinus maenus, a large species often used as seafood in Black Sea and Mediterranean Sea. The Maiidae are very interesting species of Maya, which are not having such filaments of their body. They are planting, sticking stuff on their carapaxes. Here on the right, you can see the carapax without any sticked stuff, and on the left, the animal, which is all camouflaged, but the animal is sticking this stuff on the carapax and making a camouflage specific for the species from the genus Maya. Here's the other species in Mediterranean, and a great variety in the oceans of the world. The order Arachnida, spiders. Here we are moving to terrestrial environment, and we'll talk about animals which are known as spiders, scorpions, and ticks. Quite different from the crustaceans, again arthropods. What the spider have? Firstly, it has 8 legs, 4 pairs of legs. Also, it has pedipalps. These pedipalps in front of their body are used for copulation. Could be male copulatory organ. The helicera. These are the so-called fangs of the spider. They are shallow inside, and when it attacks its prey, it is piercing the prey and ingesting venom and digestive enzymes. The soft body of the prey is digested, while the spider is holding it. After a few times, of course, the prey is dead. All of its internal organs are partly digested, and the animal is sucking this matter from the shell, from the body of the prey. So they have external digestion. You have to remember this. They don't have stomach like us, and they don't digest inside their body. Digestion is outside of their body. They are injecting enzymes in the body of their victim. All of the spiders also, you have to remember, that are predators. They are not herbivore species. All are predators. And the most specific also for spiders, are the spinneret glands. They are making this specific web structure. Some are using it as a trap, some for using for movement, and some can even fly in the air using spider web as a parachute. Also, they have a lot of eyes. Many of the spiders have a lot of eyes, which are placed in front of their head. Of course, there are some cave species which have reduced eyes and are not pigmented. Here you can see again the Heliceros also. Their body is divided into two parts. Cephalothorax is the area of their so-called chest and head. It is one structure, cephalothorax, one structure. And the abdomen. This is the difference, for example, one of the differences from the insects, because insects have head, separate head, thorax, which is separate, the chest area, and the abdomen. But the spiders have cephalothorax. The jumping spiders, family Sauticidae, are very interesting, not making the spider webs as a traps, using their web for movement. You can see here, like Spider-Man, when they are jumping, it's for anchoring somewhere. They're jumping on their prey and catching it and eating it. You can see here on the right a species which is eating a much more larger prey than itself. A variety of species, some are very colorful and very interesting. You can see here some have a variety of eyes here. Two big eyes and a smaller surrounding them. Scorpions. They're predatory again. They have 8 legs and are easily recognized by their pair of grasping pedipalps, the pincers, and the narrow segmented tail, often carrying a characteristic forward curve over the back, ending with a venomous stinger. Scorpions range in size from 9 millimeters and up, can be very large. And there are some species which we'll look at. Typhocactus mitchellii, 23 centimeters in length. It is endemic to the state of Oaxaca, Mexico. The species is the eyeless cave-dwelling genus. So they can be living in caves. The term is troglobiotic, living in caves, like the stygobiotic but terrestrial species. The other, Ordo Acari, order of the mites. Mites are arachnids, and as such evolved from a segmented body with the segments organized into two stigmata, a prosoma, cephalothorax, and an opistoma, abdomen. The mouth parts of mites may be adapted for biting, stinging, sawing, or sucking. They breathe through tracheae. They have stigmata, intestines, and the skin itself. Species hunting for other mites have very acute senses, but many mites are eyeless. So, in summary, this order consists of a variety of ecological groups. They are predators, they are plant parasites, animal parasites, and there are some which are feeding on detritic particles. Some, as I said, ectoparasites. Family Exudidae, Ixodes ricinus. You can see here on the right the female, which is full of blood, and this one on the left is the male, which is quite smaller. For our temperate regions, it's specific that mites are most active in the wet and relatively cool seasons, as the spring and the autumn, and they are rare during very dry summer days and very cold winter days. But it is much more possible to meet a mite during a mild winter days than the very hot summer days with a lot of dust. They don't like dust. The soil mites, which are the oribatids, most of them are predators, but there are some plant-eating, detritic-eating, and fungi-eating species. They have specific carapax. A lot of species are described every year, especially from the tropical areas. There are some specialists which are working intensively on them and finding a variety of species. They are dwelling in the soil mainly, but can be met also on the leaves of the bushes and grasses. And there are some commensals. They are not parasites, but use the body of the host just to live for a house. And the face occurs, or so-called eyelash mites from the genus Demodex. Very interesting, not well studied, but a lot of endemics. They tend to live on the human face. Here you can see they use as a hole, as a shelter, the follicle of the hairs beneath the eyes, on the face, on the nose also, and sometimes they are going out, and the female and male are meeting and like to copulate on the skin of the humans. Very rarely they can cause allergic reactions, but they are living peacefully with us most often. Together with the many species which are commensalic or symbiotic, living in our inside microflora and the microflora and our biome on the skin, because the microflora we used to call the bacteria and single-celled organisms and some fungi, but you can see here multi-celled organisms with a microscopic size can inhabit our skin. Everyone has species of these mites. Interesting for them is that they are feeding on the dead skin particles and other liquids from the skin, but they cannot defecate. So their abdominal part is growing, and after a few days of eating, they're just exploding and dying.